I love Ghostbusters. I've mentioned this more than a few times over the years. The 1984 original is my favorite movie of all time, and while the sequel and the reboot didn't do much for me, there was more to my fandom than just that first film. I had all kinds of toys, from a proton pack to a trap, action figures, and of course, I watched the Real Ghostbusters. Years ago, back when I was still trying to make the green screen effect work, I did a video talking about my picks for the top 10 best episodes of this cartoon, and there are many to pick from. From When Halloween Was Forever, which gives us this awesomely spooky holiday monster, to Citizen Ghost, which gives the backstory of how Slimer became a resident of the firehouse, to the brilliantly named Collect Call of Cthulhu, which dove into Lovecraftian lore. The show could have wacky cartoon humor, it could have fantastical leaps of imagination, it could even be pretty legitimately tense when it wanted to be. But for me, the single best episode is the 7th episode of the first season, Mr. Sandman, Dream Me a Dream. Oh, and yeah, take a quick second to notice the name of who wrote this. J. Michael Straczynski, as in comic book writer J. Michael Straczynski, as in creator of Babylon 5, J. Michael Straczynski. Yeah, this humble little 80s cartoon has a decent pedigree in the writing sometimes. Let's dive in. The episode gives us a properly spooky opening as this yuppie couple have a minor spat as one of them wants to play tennis while the other is rereading old comics from his childhood. The woman storms off and an unseen figure sprays rainbow glitter on the man. And my heart goes out to him. I can tell you from experience that he is never going to get that stuff out of his clothes. Then we cut back to the woman, who turns around and gives us a legitimate, horrified scream. It cuts over to the firehouse, and Peter is only just getting out of bed and clearly had a terrible night's sleep. He complains about weird dreams, and Ray offers the advice that if you know it's a dream and remind yourself of that, you can sometimes take control of that dream. The bell is rung, and the team head out on a call. They arrive at an eerily quiet location, and we get our first hint that something even weirder than usual is going on. Like, just take a minute to appreciate that, because that's adorably bizarre. I love that the audience sees this and the characters don't. The team knocks on the door, and Peter is attacked by this tentacled beastie from the cover of the comic. Egon is reluctant to have them fire on it at first because the readings are just all wrong. He has no idea what the beams will do to it. Makes some light alterations, and Winston gets this great line.
Like my dad always said, we learn by doing. Let's get it!
The monster basically just poofs away once it's hit, and the team find the couple from the opening peacefully sleeping while floating in midair. Egon speculates that this is not the work of a ghost, but something else altogether. The team takes a look outside, and we get this madness. See, this is a big part of what I love about this episode. For me, many of the best Real Ghostbusters episodes had premises that freed up the designers and the animators to go kind of nuts, and they clearly were given a long leash on this one. They got to go cartoony in a whole different way, and it's a blast. Egon floats the idea that what they're dealing with is a Sandman. That's right, the kind that helps people go to sleep, but this one has gone rogue and is using sleep dust so powerful that it makes whatever the sleeper dreams actually manifest. First off, I love that Egon just makes the leap that Sandmen are real without missing a beat. I know that's really because these are short. There isn't time for him to be doubting this, but it's such a bizarre leap of logic, and he makes it effortlessly, and I love that. His suspicions get confirmed as we now get to meet the Sandman, who has a simple but pretty effective appearance. It's slightly off-putting. His head's way too big. He's so deathly pale, and the cloak's just kind of classic. He tells the team his plan is to put people to sleep for 500 years using this absolutely wonderfully off-putting voice.
No wars, no fighting, peace and only dreams will walk the world.
I love this voice so much, and I can't even begin to tell you, especially when it shifts to how he sounds when he doesn't get his way.
Well, no one laughs at me.
So, we have our setup of dreams wandering around as people sleep. We've met our villain. We know the stakes. How do we crank it up a notch before the commercial break? Oh, well, we have the Sandman take everyone's dreams and turn them into nightmares. I mean, look at this. Everything cute and whimsical is twisted into something scary just in time for the act break. We come back and our heroes are on the run. Their proton packs may have made short work of the dreams and the past, but they're vastly outnumbered and need to refocus on taking out the Sandman himself. First priority is to get Ecto 1 so they're not stuck on foot. To do that, they have to take out a monstrous version of the Easter Bunny because why not? The car won't start, and when Ray goes to check under the hood, he's ambushed by the Sandman, which immediately manifests his dream of pizza. Now, this could be argued as being a bit of a fat joke, and I'm not going to say it 100% isn't, but what I love about this is that in a matter of seconds, we demonstrate how tricky the Sandman is, the heroes are down a member, and the car is now inaccessible. That, my friends, is efficient storytelling at its best. Now down a man, the remaining three try to track the Sandman, and that leads them to a building guarded by a freaking dragon. This is where we get a nice explanation of why they're not just blasting every nightmare they come across now that they're no longer being swarmed.
Every time we take out one of those things, it's like holding up a sign saying, "Here we are."
I like that there's these little acknowledgments for how the story goes out. It's a little bit more explanation than you would sometimes get from this cartoon, and I think it shows a respect for the intelligence of the audience. Once inside the building, they make the classic mistake of splitting up, and Peter gets sleep dusted. And his dream?
Accepting the Pulitzer Prize, Peter Venkman. Accepting the Oscar, Peter Venkman. Accepting...
Yeah, of course. Oh, and in case anybody thinks it's a plot hole that Ray and Peter are having seemingly ordinary dreams and not nightmares, just keep in mind the Sandman only transformed the dreams that were active at the time. New dreams that have started since he did all that, they get to kick off as normal. It's not a plot hole. I think way too much about these cartoons. Winston and Egon start the long, slow trudge back to the firehouse, with Egon kind of hung up on Ray's advice to Peter way back at the start of the episode about telling yourself it's only a dream. But right when he puts the pieces together, the Sandman gets him. This leaves Winston all on his own. Well, on his own with Egon's dream of Einstein. Naturally. Winston has a serious moment of self-doubt, being the only member of the team who isn't a scientist and doubting his ability to cope with what is going on. Einstein gives him a little pep talk, tells him nobody needs to be a scientist to solve a problem, and just kind of toddles off. Winston continues the trek to the firehouse and has a bolt of lightning moment, actually kind of literally, which is a little on the nose, but cool, we'll roll with it, and he formulates a plan. Now, as the audience, we don't know what he's hit on initially. And that gets strung out, I think, just the right amount of time, because we jump ahead to the firehouse where he's just finishing telling Janine whatever his plan is and arming her with a spare proton pack. Slimer warns them that the Sandman has arrived and hides into a drawer. Oh, and side note, Slimer is used just the right amount in this episode. He has a brief appearance at the front end, basically tormenting Peter, which he's really good for, and then he comes in here at the end. Slimer, when used properly, was really an asset to the show. Later seasons, which would lean on the character so heavily that they actually rebranded it Slimer in the Real Ghostbusters, that was just not something that went down very well. But this kind of use where he basically is just a pet or a mascot that lives at the firehouse, and that's pretty much the only time that the Ghostbusters interact with him, that works fine, and that's how he's used here. Naturally, the Sandman shows up. Winston and Janine take some shots at him, but he keeps vanishing away, managing to get behind Janine and put her to sleep. This leaves him to close in on Winston and gloat. Although Winston has a pretty good rebuttal to this entire scheme of his.
But the whole reason people dream is so they can try to make their dreams come true. How can they do that if they're all asleep for 500 years?
Things are looking grim. But guess what? Janine has been reminding herself that she's dreaming. She takes control of the dream, imagines herself as a Ghostbuster. She suits up and catches the Sandman off guard from behind. Winston joins to pin him down, and we have possibly my single favorite moment in the entire history of the show. Seriously, that is burned into my memory. The perfect sore loser villain scream, a terrific and very cool image, and the theme music kicking in with my favorite part of that song right at the key moment. Oh, it's so good. One more time, please. Oh, I love that so much. Slimer sends out a trap, Sandman's captured, everybody wakes up. There's a little note at the end where Winston isn't celebrating because he's the only person who didn't sleep, so he needs to nap. And that's a wrap on this one. I love so much about this episode. It has virtually everything I enjoy about this show all wrapped up into a single package. A chance for the designers and the animators to go both goofy and dark with really inventive visual gags and monsters. Great jokes rooted in the characters. A creative villain that has the heroes on the back foot right from the start and requires a creative solution, not a technobabble one. And as a bonus, it allows Janine to have a hero moment and allows Winston, my favorite Ghostbuster for the record, the chance to shine. Since The Real Ghostbusters was an ensemble show, different episodes would sometimes highlight different members of the team, but this is done a little differently than in other instances. Usually, if an episode was going to mainly focus on one of the Ghostbusters above the other, it becomes very clear very early on which one it's going to be. And you'll realize within the first 5 minutes, oh, this is a Peter episode, this is a Ray episode, etc., etc. But here, you wouldn't guess from the front half of the show that Winston would be the last man standing, and yet feels totally fitting, totally earned, and it gives him a chance to be clever, in addition to brave, which was usually his default thing. So that, my friends, is Mr. Sandman, Dream Me a Dream, my personal, all-time favorite episode of the cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters. I would seriously be up for doing more videos like this, but it is probably going to depend on the response I get. But this was fun for me, and I hope it was for you as well. Please like, subscribe, consider supporting my Patreon. Plus, I've got another channel, I've got a book, bunch of links in the description that you can click on, but you also don't have to do any of that, because at the end of the day, you're the council, and I am only running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.